Sai Ram, if you all can hear me online, please give a thumbs up. Let's start the study circle today with 3 ohms. Oh. 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 Dear Swami, we are so grateful to be able to meet here together in your presence today. While we are here together studying your word in your Bhagavat Vahini, we ask that you open our ears and hearts to whatever it is you want us to learn. Please speak through each one of us and help us progress in our spiritual journey. Jai Sai Ram. Just want to confirm everybody can hear online. Okay, Sairam. So let's just start. I just want to remind everyone of the etiquette of the study circle. Definitely request you all to mute your cell phones if you have not already done so. But just wanted to remind everyone to have an open mind and ask questions that arise. And let's not make it personal and let's try to learn. The best way to do this is to basically leave our egos outside, and that would be a great practice starting with our study circle. Thank you. All right. So just a little review from last session. And I have really, I know we had a great session last time. And I just wanted to, I just summarized it at a very high level. So we talked about God's grace. We talked about if it is there, if we earn it, how do we earn it, and how can we feel it? This was based off of how Parikshit had the grace of the Lord, and Krishna, he looked for Krishna during that. And during his when he started crawling towards him, and that was one. And then we talked about how Yudhishthira, after learning from Vyasa about Parikshit and his divine intervention, that's when he started feeling how blessed the baby was. So with that, we moved on to, we heard chapter 4, we listened to it, and we while reading. And then we talked a little bit about the beginning of that chapter, which began with Yudhishthira feeling sinful. I felt we did not finish it, but uh, I will leave it as an open forum before we move on to through the same discussion. Any topic or anything that you all would like to add, please feel free. Yeah, we'll go to the next one. Yes, absolutely. Chapter 4. Yes. So, Bhargava, can you read, please?
I have committed countless sins, killing kith and kin. I feel I must do some expiation for this, or else there will be no happiness for me, for my dynasty, or for my people. Therefore, I wish to take this opportunity to seek your advice on this matter. There are many among you who have known the reality and have attained knowledge, jnana, of Brahman. We have here also the great sage Vyasa. I expect you to suggest some expiatory rite by which I can rid myself of the colossal quantity of sin that I accumulated as a result of this war.
So Yudhishthira felt sinful because of the war. So a few questions or few pointers that I thought of for this was, even with Krishna by his side and Krishna actually saying that Yudhishthira felt, that was a dharmic war. He still felt sinful. Now, looking back at Kurukshetra war, is there a reason for Pandavas to feel that their acts were sinful? And you can take the other mic. Bhargava, here.
Take it out.
So in this one, I'm thinking that because Yudhishthira is thinking he's the doer, he is feeling sinful, right? So as soon as you know that this is God, God has said this to him and had done it not as a doer, probably he would have attributed everything to Krishna.
So,
I remember your statement. Yes, please go ahead.
so it is very easy for us to look retrospectively and now put it on God or my dharma. It would be better if we practice strong enough so that when we are doing that karma, your feelings are at that moment, your feelings are of a duty rather than the doer. Looking retrospectively, now it is more of convincing your mind. Okay, now yeah, it was my, like, let's put it in God's lap. It was you who did it. It was you who got me done. So I don't know, retrospectively, would it be of same benefit or not? Rather than that, practicing it beforehand and while doing the act, your feeling should be focused not to take a revenge, not to take a animosity, but rather to that I'm doing my duty. So these are two different things. Like now it is very easy to convince him. Not easy, but at least now they will all convince him. Okay, no, it was Krishna would convince him. No, it was me who was making you do all that. But better would have been to have so much of practice of your own mind, training of your own mind beforehand, so that when you're actually doing it, at that time your feelings should be duty feeling rather than the revenge feeling.
Saira. Also, the Pandavas were trying to lead a life of righteousness. They always, even though all the atrocities Duryodhana did, they tried to do the right thing. So in the war, probably Yudhishthira feels guilty also for killing his acharyas and Bhishma and his cousins. So basically, they are good people. So that is why he feels remorseful and sinful, I think, in spite of Krishna's saying not that.
I think he just displays a normal human being's reaction. As I think Manojji said, at that time, maybe that was his reaction. As in retrospect, we can always say that this is what it is, this is how it is, because in the we are always myopic. At that time, when it happens, we only look at the narrow field. So when we go further down, or after as years go by, we will be able to see the bigger picture.
Sairam, I still think, let me give another analogy. In physics, silicon especially has got something called a Fermi level. So the electrons jump from one to the other. It's a huge jump. So Yudhishthira is falling between those two. Here, we don't have that chance. When God is standing next to you and then saying this is not a sin, and then yet, you say, no, I'm feeling remorseful. No, what you did is not a sin. No, no, no. What I did is sin. Here's God telling you that, right? So I do not know. At that point, he is behaving in the lower energy state where he's below the Fermi level. And suddenly, he says, I put everything onto you. Then he jumps up to that state. So I don't know. He seems to be jumping both ways.
But just with the same thing, there are so many of Swami's devotees themselves, right? Who have probably gone through that as well, right?
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
talk about it in a retrospect where.
So in fact, 3 weeks ago when the story that Venkat mentioned, Venkat mentioned a similar story where the astrologer comes and says, I have seen your Jatakam and you are Narayana, and then here's the prasad, and he says, no, today is so I'm looking to go to Narayana, right? And so that's why I'm doing the upvas. So it's almost like that.
See, the thing is, the mind, see, let's look at what causes that sin, what causes that guilt. The guilt is created by the mind because it compares with either other situations or others. It compares your situation with others, similar situation, and then says the convention is not to kill your relatives. Okay, you have to be obedient to them, especially your guru. Okay, you cannot even think of doing any harm to your guru. And here he is, and the Pandavas, they have killed their guru. So this is a big thing because the mind plays that game. Hey, how can you do this? How can you even think of doing it? Okay, that must be the situation going around. Even though Krishna is there, Krishna is telling you that this is common in war, and they have fought the war in a righteous way, and it's a righteous war. So that is what Krishna is telling, but his mind is playing that. I think that's the war between the mind and the heart. Even though the heart is, maybe his heart is saying that Krishna is right, so but the mind is playing that.
So, Sairam, I just wanted to, just bringing it down to our level too. Like this is a human birth, right? And we don't know how many more births they had before and what they will have later. But similar situations can happen, and actually happened to me yesterday. So all these teachings you learn, you know God is the doer, you understand it intellectually, but when it comes to daily life, you're always doing it on an eye level, right? When I'm doing my job, I have to say, I recommend this and that. So my eye is strongly reinforced every single time, even though I recognize behind it intellectually that, I is just this body and not so it gets reinforced. Not only that, every time your reactions to this something going wrong will be the same thing. So they will become more strengthened, they become samskaras. So they'll come back every life after life unless you just recognize this at the moment and say, no, this is not how I should react. That's when that samskara will not be formed. That's when it will dissipate. So for me, yesterday, I was so disappointed because someone didn't do what they're supposed to do. And I feel like that's always my trigger. It triggers a kind of dissatisfaction that builds up slowly to anger inside. And I'm recognizing it. I'm seeing, no, this is wrong. I don't know why I'm reacting, but I couldn't stop. The feelings were there inside. And I thought about it. And when I read about it, Eckhart Tolle talks about it as a pain body complex in his famous book. And that's nothing but samskara. So when something wrong happens or something good happens, it can be an attachment. It can be an aversion, to violence. So in this case, you could say that aversion that he had to violence is triggering that reaction in him. Oh, I committed a crime, So then it becomes strongly enforced.
Great point. Thank you.
So in this case, should we take that guilt is a property of good people? Bad people will never have that guilt. So it is.
I don't know. I don't think that is true. I think.
They ignore
no,
it.
I think
That is what is.
They will not get the feeling.
That is why they are able to do the act in the first place. That when you don't have that.
Yeah, I think the mind comes and tries to justify. That's depending upon their situation and of course their prarabdha karma, and so many lifetimes they have reached that stage. So it justifies, the mind justifies it. And so they trust the mind. They don't, the heart will always prompt it is wrong. When they do something, some harm to anybody, I think the heart will always say that's wrong. But the mind is so powerful, they just go with the mind and subdue the heart. Heart is just a silent witness. So that is the difference between mind and the heart. Heart will never enforce. It will just keep reminding. It will just keep reminding and keep quiet. If you just say shut up, it will just shut up. It won't reach. Whereas the mind will be always overpowering, and it will keep enforcing.
That's correct. Yeah. So with that, can we move on? Because of course we can continue the discussion. Does anyone want to say anything? Yes, Subhadra, please go ahead.
Yeah, just to add to what everybody's saying, I feel it's good that Yudhishthir has a little tug in his heart. You are after all killing, even if it's for duty. There is a war, so it's good to feel something that. But what bothers me is, why should you feel the tug only when you think that you're killing your people? Killing anyone should make you feel that.
Okay.
It's not, oh, I'm killing my guru. Oh, I'm killing my people. That bothers me. So I know Yudhishthira is Dharmaraja, so he should have the same tug. So that's what I.
That is true.
I
but,
think to explain,
yeah.
they're
Yeah,
Kshatriyas.
Kshatriyas.
Their duty is to kill, to protect people. Yeah. No, you can't.
All this, they feel this only when they say my people. Arjuna could not, when he was standing in the war, because they all are they all are Yodhas. So I don't think they had all these questioning mind until Arjuna stood right in front of Kauravas, their own people, because they're Kshatriyas. That's their duty. That's what I'm saying. All their life, they have been at war with different people for different reasons. But this tug in the heart happened when you saw my people. So that is something that I always question.
That's a very good point, but they are also human birth. See, our nature is like identify with your family, your neighbor and your town, like that only. We live in the small, radius. Then your country. After that only, you think of others. So the same question, even Krishna, Arjuna, in that Bhagavad Gita, it comes up that why he feels only for this. Krishna says, you are feeling this way, but you have killed many people. And we are all one.
So
He
it's
says
the
that.
attachment,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yes,
because of the
the
attachment.
attachment.
That is one of the kleshas,
yeah.
attachment, or it's also called raga. So when you have that, it binds you down. Yeah, likes and dislikes. It's the
Great point. Thank you. So we'll just move on to the next piece. And this is what Krishna responded to Yudhishthira feeling sinful. So can someone please read it? Tanmay, you want to read?
Om can read.
Om can read, yeah. Yeah.
Read it.
Hold the mic, Mark.
Hold the mic.
That's fine. That's okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
Tanmay, what is it?
Tanmay, why don't you go ahead and read, Ma?
Yeah. Lord Krishna said, yet, Yudhishthira, you are famous as master of Dharma, Dharma Raja, and you've out to know Dharma. You know the intricacies of Dharma and morality, of justice, of right and wrong conduct. Therefore, I am surprised that you are afflicted with grief over this war and this victory. Don't you know that a warrior, Kshatriya, incurs no sin when he kills a foe who has come to the battlefield armed with intention to kill? Injury or pain or loss that is inflicted on the battlefield during a fight with armed foes is free from sin. It is the dharma of a warrior to take up the sword and fight to the very end to save his country, without any thought of self. You have only observed your dharma. How can activity, karma, along the lines of dharma be sinful? It isn't proper to doubt this and give way to despair. Sin can't touch, surround, or bother you. Instead of exulting over this naming festival, for the newborn prince? Why do you dread imaginary calamities and seek remedies for non-existent sins? Be calm, be happy.
Oh, Saira Mashaji, give me one minute and then you can start. Yes. So this is what Krishna responded to Yudhishthira feeling sinful. And, why do you dread imaginary calamities and seek remedies for non-existent sins? That is what he said. And he said, be calm, be happy. So with that, I have a few questions here, but I just wanted to give Ashaji. Yes, please go ahead, Ashaji.
I have a hypothetical question. If Dharamraj at that time was accused by something, let's say Krishna accused him, you killed so many people. Yeah, all that was horrible. Eh? Perhaps he would have protected himself. Hey, that was a very legitimate war or a proper war. I didn't do anything wrong. But the thing is, he's not being accused at that time. So he doesn't have to protect himself. Okay, oh, I didn't do that bad thing. Yeah, you think. So because nobody's pointing finger at him or accusing him, he is more he's feeling bad that he has done something wrong. Just a hypothetical question, I thought.
Thank you, Ashaji. So we'll come back to that. But basically, let's talk about this, what Krishna said. Given that Krishna says Yudhishthira is Dharma Raja, we can believe that. Who decides what our dharma is today? Are my actions in a given situation dharmic? I don't know. So will my action accrue karmic burden because he did what his duty was and he had no karmic burden? But what is the connection between dharma and karma? That I always have a problem with that dharma and karma. And of course, mama dharma and its determination is something that we discussed before. But that is the easier part of the thing. But the connection between dharma and karma is, I think, that's where I would like to start this, if anyone has any thoughts.
I can start with the opinion. So, yeah, can I? Yeah. Okay. So, my feeling is, as long as the three things coincide, thought, word, and deed, okay, that coincidence is very important. Then, as long as you don't carry a guilt in what you have done, you invariably, that will be a good karma because all the three have been matched. Most of the time, we don't do that. Maybe during that time, you think you're doing it, and then later on, you say, oh, maybe I should have done that. So that means the guilt is coming back. So if, you're comfortable with what you did and you have no other burden to carry at the end of it, then that is really a dharma. That's what I.
So, Sairam, I think, so for example, we don't know everything that is dharmic, right? I mean, we probably rights, all the wrongs. I don't think it's easy for us to like learn from one book, or they're all told in many different ways. So we may know a few, we may not know a few. Again, like Shankaranji says, so killing is wrong, right? Everyone agrees that killing is wrong. But let's say a burglar, someone comes with a gun into your house and he's holding your kid hostage. And what will you do as a mom? What is your dharma at that time? Your dharma is to protect your kid. You'll do anything to protect that kid, even if it means killing that other person. In that situation, killing, although is wrong, you're doing it to protect your own child. Yeah, because of attachment, but again, that other person is doing an adharmic thing. So clearly here, no one will argue and say that you're doing something wrong. In this situation, it happened and it is right. And your conscience will be clean because you know why you're doing it. But you're killing for the killing's sake, like someone goes and hunts an animal, even though they're not going to eat. If they're going to eat it and they need it, it makes sense. But you're doing it for pleasure, just for the sake of it, then we all feel like, if we are all sitting and judging in our heads, is like, was that necessary? Why unnecessary? So I think there is an inner compass that gives you an answer most of the time. There may be more tougher situations that are hard to judge, but most of the time, the dharma depends on your own role as a mom, as a teacher, as a whatever role you're playing. There are some dharmas to that role. That's what I feel.
So when we were discussing this, Jhansi Ki Rani came to my mind, right? She had her child in the back, and the child got killed also in that process. Think about a mother losing a child in the process, knowing that she's taking the child is going to get killed, and it gets killed. But she knew her dharma very well, that she has to protect her kingdom. So I think that, many of the situations are gray, right? It's not black and white. But there are situations that are, for us, as you said, individually, you can think very well that this is black and white, and this is what I need to do. And in like, Shivaji and Jhansi Ki Rani, I mean, because we know that that happened recently, we are clearly aware of that historical part. I think the same situation can be, used in this case of Yudhishthira also. You had a person who was totally adharmic, and he was taking over that whole world. And so Yudhishthira's dharma was to protect the dharma, right?
No, I agree. But Yudhishthira and Arjuna and all had Krishna to to tell people, hey, you guys are doing right thing or wrong or whatever it is. Today we don't have anyone to tell us what is the dharma. Yeah, like that's a practical situation that Shobha just gave an example of. I can relate to that because I am also a mother and I relate to that. But if you look at it if you really look at it from the burglar point of view, God knows why he was there in the first place. What his, so again, it goes in a circle to understand who is right for anything.
So when you said that, even if God is there, like Manuji said, we don't know if we will do what he is asking us to do, right? So for example, Swami asked one student, he went for a job, he said, resign the job. And so he did not. He did not resign. It's a very small compared to the war. Even then he was like, oh, I have to feed my family, I have to do this. No, I will look for a job and then resign it. You don't follow Swami teaching. So we are in the fence all the time.
But also, I mean, that reminds me, you're right. I mean, listening also, we don't do like that because, Arvind actually says, he always used to tell Swami, I'll do whatever you say, whatever you say. And then he clicks a picture and shows Swami, Swami, this is the picture when you went to Hatshi. And he said, oh, during sunrise. He said, no, during sunset. So and then later on, after 10 years, he caught himself saying, oh my God, I know. He always said, I listen to you. Swami said, no, you don't. You don't listen. But he always felt like he was listening to Swami. But till that happened, and then he realized, oh, I even argued with him. That no, this was during sunset. I have to say, if he's just like Arjuna, that's why Arjuna was ready for that Gita, because when he said that is not a pigeon, that's an eagle, he promptly said, whatever you say. If you say it's an eagle, it's an eagle. But that is very true. We don't, we can't actually bring ourselves to do that.
Sairam, when Shobhaji mentioned about the person coming with a gun, I was reminded of Geeta Mohan Ram.
Yes.
Okay, just for the benefit of few people, she's in Washington D.C. and she was going to the bank to draw money. She's really short. She couldn't draw from the car. She had to keep the door open and step down and then put the card. And then suddenly a guy comes, shows a gun at her, and then says, drive, drive, drive. Okay. So she's not sitting in the car to drive. She has the door open. And so she had to move thing and then sit. By the time he's pointing gun at her. And then he's demanding drive. By the time, there are police cars everywhere surrounding them. So this is the gas station. So, or no, the bank machine, ATM machine. So then at that time, what she did, see, this is where what I wanted to say was, this is where the listening to I mean, you were saying that Krishna is not there. So what she did, she always has a small picture of Swami right there in the car dashboard. she put her thumb in that one, on that picture. And then slowly, calmly, she answered. She didn't react. She calmly answered that, hey, look, you can kill me. I'll be gone. But look, you cannot escape from this situation. There are police cars everywhere. So you cannot escape from this situation. You will be committing one more crime of killing a person. So is that what you want? She said. And then that guy paused for a few minutes, and then he just dropped and surrendered and left. So that talk of that divine Krishna coming and talking is possible if we are able to listen. Even in that situation, if we are able to listen calmly, that means we have to subdue the mind, and it won't come, especially in that situation, unless we put into practice throughout our lives. So that is where it is. This whole thing comes with the training. So when we do that in the normal lifetime, even in that emergency situation, we will be in that position of calm, and then that divine voice will speak through us.
Sairam, I'm just following comment on. Now you are fairly calm. So she said that, yeah, that time Krishna was there, physical form, but today we don't have any Krishna. But I debate that today we don't have Krishna, but we have Swami. We have, if Swami says you have to turn off all the worries to me, and then I can look at for you. Remember when this battle was about to start, Krishna was in his home, and then Duryodhan and Arjun both came to seek his help, right? Krishna was lying down, and Arjuna sat on the feet of Krishna, whereas Duryodhan sat on the head side of the Krishna. So he asked, what do you want from me? Both of them. And then Arjuna said that I want you, Krishna. Duryodhan was laughing. He's a fool. He's only asking one-man army, and how can he do without 1,000-man army? So he was laughing, and he said to Krishna, I only want 1,000-man army. I'll be fine. So this is where it is. I mean, he wanted God. And when you have God, you have got everything. So in present context, yes, we don't have physical Krishna or any God, but we have that mind to connect to the God. And that will be able for us to decide on the occasion when these things happen, as Shobhaji said. So this is mine. Thank you.
Sairam, we don't need to have a physical Krishna or Swami in front of us all the time. See, whole our practice is to connect within ourselves, to invoke the God in us. So that is the whole point of studying, discussing, and being in a satsang, to bring that awareness that God is within us. So to access the God within us, we have to take certain practices. Until and unless we do that, we won't be able to connect to the inner God, the God as we are. So then if we are waiting for some God to come with the Vishnu and Chakra and all that, we will be waiting forever. So that is not going to happen.
So my question is, so if my action is dharmic, I will not accrue any karmic points, right? So we are all obviously trying to get to that at some point. Again, I would like to go back to unity of what Shankaranji said. My mind always tells me that my actions are in union. I have the unity of, so there has to be a third person to gauge that within me, right?
No, your conscience is the third person.
Just I said, you don't need, why do you need a third person? See,
My mind is telling me my actions are perfect. My thought, word, action are all in sync. That's how my mind is telling
yeah,
me,
that
right?
is your ego telling you that. Yes, then you do things according to what you think is the right thing. Not just you, anybody. I don't want to point out you. But then we see the results, right? Our actions, it yields the result that which may not be, or which won't be in our liking. If the thought, word, and action are not in unison, and our ego says you are doing the right thing, You know, for the robber, his mind is telling you are doing the right thing, rob the bank. Then the result is obvious, right? He will get caught, go to prison.
Not really
So-
in Kali Yuga.
Oh, no, they do. Either now or later. And then we believe in karma, he might go next to Janma to the prison. So, but whatever it is, I think whatever we practice, it will yield whatever actions we do. Yeah.
Is why do we have to wait like that? Why do we even have to question all that? Which karma I'll accrue, that's leave it to God. He'll decide. He's the one who's always watching and doing it, whether you like it or not. If you did something wrong in your own ego, you probably made the mistake. I don't think that's like, if he wants me to know and correct my mistake, I'm sure he'll show me a way. That thought will come to me today or tomorrow or someplace. My thing is always think for the moment and say, Swami, give me the strength to do the right thing and do it. What karma it's accruing, I don't know. First of all, you don't even know what next janma. You won't have that memory, thankfully, because if you have the memory for all the janmas, can you imagine how the mind will be? Crazy. So it doesn't matter. We shouldn't be doing things for that reason. We have to live our life. We're living our life moment to moment. At that moment, do what you feel is right. If we can all live in that moment with God's, knowing his presence, like, Manoj ji said earlier, knowing at the moment, taking that pause and making the right action, whether it's right or wrong, he'll judge it and leave it at that.
Yeah, so I want to just add one more thing to the previous question. I want to quote an example. So once I came across a gentleman who had a Guruji. He was also a Swami devotee. In fact, he was at Puttaparthi in Swami's 75th birthday. So he shared this experience. He said the Guruji always guides you. And the Guruji is, with whom you believe, is no more. He has left the body. So he said he still guides me. So of course, mind is a monkey mind. So how do you know, that in the Guruji is what? Can you give examples of that? And so he said he's a hiker. He likes hiking in the other, he was in the New York area, northern New York area. So he used to go hiking. So he said three things that, God uses to guide you. And if you just have to watch for it, nature is one thing. And then he said animals is the other one. And the third thing he said are, plants. Even the plants can actually tell you what to do. So I said, oh, really? Can you give, have you benefited by that? He said, yes. And one of the examples he gave was he got lost. It was in the springtime, around this time, when the days are very, very warm and the nights are very cold. So he went and, into some hiking and then lost the way. And then it got dark and it got very cold, and he didn't bring any winter things. And so he was following the trail. And then he was hearing all these animals in the distance, and he's walking, and suddenly he started hearing a dog barking. And so he said, so he started following, okay, there's a, before that, let me go to the plant first. So he was walking, and then the trail divided into two ways. So he said, how do I go? Which way to go? So he just asked, his guru, two paths and which way. And as he watched, one of the plants suddenly, he was going to that one side, and then one of the plants suddenly started shaking like this. And so he said, oh, maybe I'm getting the message. That's not the way. Then he went the other way. Then he heard this dog bark. So he said, there must be somebody, some cabin or something there, because a dog is there. So he started, barking back like a dog. And so then the dog got excited, of course. And then, so he was following that, and he was following where that sound is coming from. And in the distance, he saw a cabin. And so he went there, and, the cabin owner, looking at this dog barking like crazy. So he immediately came out with a gun. So, he's trying to protect himself. So he was looking at that, and then this guy, saw the gun and then raised his hand and went towards him. And so he stopped and said, why did you do this? And, in the middle of the night with no protection, this is very dangerous. Come on in, stay over the night. And he gave him food and he gave him shelter, and he stayed there. And, so he told him at that time, two things you must always carry with you if you're going on hiking. One of them is a match, and because fire can actually help you to keep yourself warm and also keep the animals away. So this was, he gave for this, and the child example I will on the time. Sorry.
Uh, I would like to respectfully disagree with Shobhaji, because, I mean, the stage she is talking about is quite advanced stage, that we leave it up to him. For us, I mean, if we reach that stage, we are close to moksha actually. That stage is quite ahead of where I feel myself. Unless we learn, as the question was for Bhavani, from Bhavani ji. So what is the dharma? So that's why satsang is important, to learn what your dharmas are. That's which will prevent you from doing those karmas which will be building up your sanskars, your bad sanskars. So preventing preventing us to do those karmas, how would we learn? Seeking, reading, listening, staying in the company, listening to Guruji, staying in that company. So that's where the importance of satsang comes in. When you learn all those, then once you elevate to that level, then obviously what she is saying would be correct. That you will start to leave everything. You will start to learn everything to him, to Almighty. That let him decide, let him show me the path. That is kind of surrendering to him. That comes little later though.
Okay, that's a fair point. Thank you. I actually have Rakhi online who said, believing in our inner conscience is what our dharma is, and it's on an individual to reflect and react. So, thank you, Rakhi. So, if we can move on, because I wanted to actually introduce this. What does Krishna mean by why do you dread imaginary calamities and seek remedies for non existent sins? Be calm, be happy. So Krishna actually says this in response to Yudhishthira. And I thought it was interesting, and we can go around and talk about it. But more importantly, I wanted to kind of take this opportunity to talk about happiness, which I think these days is kind of convoluted when we talk about happiness. So we'll talk about that. But yeah, what does Krishna mean?
Sairam, see this, even though Krishna is addressing Yudhishthira, it is applicable to each one of us. So we are all imagining many times our mind plays that game, and then it projects certain things, certain situations as something dreadful, something that it puts the guilt on us, or it even falsely maybe happy also, but it's just misplaced happiness. So all these things played by mind. So we have to be aware of that. And then the way to elevate ourselves is to go beyond the mind and look at the heart. I mean, basically, we should not be, we should always realize that whatever we are feeling is not the real one. Yeah, always we have to see that it is not the real, that's not the true thing. That's not true. That's Maya. So I think that is one way to go, or when we are feeling elated, think that, okay, this is just a passing phase. We are going to have that next thing coming. Or when we are going through a down phase, then think that there's going to be a temporary thing, and then you're going to get a happy phase coming in.
I think we can replace the non-existent sins. For us, we don't think of sins. We think a non-existent situations or calamities going to come, either health-wise or finance-wise, or living situation or job. So we waste a lot of our energy and peace of mind on that. But then be calm and be happy sounds really good when you are sitting here and talking with a full stomach and, and comfortable. But when we are going through that particular situation that I don't know how many of us are happy or calm facing that. So all that I can think of is practice, 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 all the time.
So-
Sai Ram.
So Swami has said that, our mind is like clothes, right? When we wear clothes, it becomes dirty. You have to wash it, right? And Manojji, what you said, that's what Swami said, is that in order for us to wash, for us, that cloth is the satsang. And satsang doesn't mean sitting in a group. Listening to a great soul is also a satsang. So he said satsang is very critical. Every minute of the time, it should be a satsang only. And that's when, because mind always is doing something or the other. It needs something to do. So when you focus on the satsang, the mind automatically calms down. So that is very critical, he said.
See, I mean, even the real life, we see the dirt coming all the time. It's not like we cleaned in the yesterday, so we don't have to clean. It always comes. You have to clean every day. So that cleaning process is always have to be there. I think
I just want to, we have a calendar at home, which is a daily calendar, which is no year, but the month and the day are only the two things you see. So we keep reading that maybe for the last 10 years, we have repeated it. And one of the message that came is all Swami's message. So this one, he said, renunciation is something that Manojji and Shobha mentioned. So I want to read that, what I understood from that. To me, it's complicated, but I have my interpretation. Renunciation is the power of battling the evil forces and holding the mind in check. This is what he calls renunciation. So my interpretation is, somewhat, each time we, ask this question that you are asking, immediately it draws a lot of our evil forces. What are those evil forces? All the, anger, jealousy, moha, everything, and desires, and associated moha. All those things come, and then those are the evil forces. If we can control them, and then keep the mind, under check, because the mind is asking, go, react, with any one of these tools that I have given you. And, and then if you don't do that and keep the mind under check, then you're not fully renunciated, but you're going through that. So in everyday action, if whatever emotion that is causing us to question that, if we can control that, I think that will give you the peace and also the happiness. That's what it is.
Yeah, the mind, like everybody's saying, right? Every moment it wants to think. That's the action of the mind. And then you're thinking either of the past or the present, which are non-existent. One has passed, one is to come. And you're constantly in either of those, not at this moment. But it's also the nature to attach itself to different things. So instead of working hard to detach yourself, I feel it's easier to attach yourself to God. Then the detachment happens automatically. So that what Soumya said, always listening, always doing it will take your mind towards that side. And the attachment grows slowly, slowly, slowly. And the detachment happens. You don't have to actively detach yourself. Oh, I don't want anger. I don't want this. I don't want that. It's not an act. I think actively doing it is much harder. Letting it happen passively by attaching yourself to God is much easier, I feel.
Okay, Sairam, so we have 10 minutes. I am just going to start the study circle on happiness with a story. And this is from, this study circle was on our SSSIO website, and it is something that has been discussed multiple times. But I just wanted to read this story, and then we'll talk about the questions thereof. In the Bhrigu section of the Taittiriya Upanishad, which comes after the bliss of Brahman section, is the story of Bhrigu, son of Varuna. While teaching Bhrigu the Brahman phenomena, self-realization, Varuna says, "Son, Brahman cannot be seen through the eyes. Know that Brahman is the one which enables the eyes to see and the ears to hear. He can be known only through extreme yearning in a cleansed mind and concentrated thought. No other means can help." He added, "Dear Bhrigu, know that everything in the universe originates from Brahman, exists in Brahman, unfolds through Brahman, and merges in Brahman alone. Discover it for yourself through concentrated spiritual practice." The father gave him only these indications before directing him to enter upon spiritual exercises that would ultimately reveal the truth. With full faith in the words of his father, Bhrigu engaged in concentrated spiritual practice. The process of self control and self inquiry raised his consciousness, and he believed that what he understood at that stage as Brahman and decided that food was Brahman. When he declared that he had come to know, his father, Varuna, told him that his answer was not right. So Bhrigu continued the spiritual practices and found out that vital air or prana was Brahman. Since without vital air, other things are vain. Vital air causes life, promotes life, and puts an end to life. But his father also pronounced this interface wrong and sent him again for further spiritual practice. In this manner, Bhrigu had a third period of austerity when he came upon mind as Brahman, and later a fourth when he revised that conclusion and believed that it was spiritual wisdom, which is Vijnana. At last, after undergoing a fifth course of spiritual practice, he became aware that spiritual bliss was Brahman. He stayed in the bliss of that awareness and never more proceeded to his father. The father sought Bhrigu and congratulated him, who had cast the world away from his memory, and said, "Son, you have merged in that vision." So, this is from Sutra Vahini that Swami had written. This is on chapter 3 from Upanishad Vahini, I believe. Other than the Sutra Vahini, this story was also in the Upanishad Vahini. So here are a few sayings from Swami, but I wanted to actually, we can come back to this while we discuss. But discussing what is happiness, what are the characteristics of worldly happiness? If we can discuss that, then we can actually go in and kind of make a comparison to spiritual happiness. So let's start with what is happiness? What does happiness mean?
Swami says happiness is the gap between 2 points of pain. So what the happiness in the physical sense, it keeps changing. Today I want something, I get it, I'm very happy. Tomorrow I don't get what I want, I'm not happy at all. So these are temporary things. If we look for happiness outside, we are never going to be happy. So that is the state of mind. Yes. So this is not something you can buy, you can get happiness. If we are asking for happiness, we are in trouble. You'll never get happiness in that way. So there's a lot more to say, but I'll give others a chance.
See, the conventional or the materialistic way of considering what happiness is when we have some expectations, and if that expectation is met, we are happy. But we are not assured that we are going to meet that expectations, because the expectations, the very word tells that it is for the future. So we don't have any control over what we are going to. If it happens the way we expect, then we are happy. So the fact that we have the expectations and the fact that we are able to meet it is what causes the happiness. But that is definitely materialistic, and that cannot create a permanent happiness, because once that happiness is achieved, the next, the new expectations and new, this one is going to come. So that is, I think, the characteristics of worldly happiness. I think we will, I'll stop here and then
Yeah. So typically happiness is basically explained as, and I'm reading out of the dictionary version, says it's an emotional state characterized by feelings of joy, satisfaction, like you said, contentment, and fulfillment.
So this is written by the person who wrote the dictionary.
Yes. So again, all of that we call as temporary, but a lot of things, because there is no happy, I guess the world is not as happy right now, just with the way things are going. So happiness is something that we can all think of. I understand that it's temporary, but without that, now there are medications, right?
Not just now. It's always has been like that. That's when I when I read like Buddha's book, he was pre-Christ back before the whole centuries even started. Even then he was describing, right? The desire being the root cause of unhappiness. So it'll always be there. Swami Vivekananda says the good and evil will always be there in the world. It'll keep changing. The balance is always maintained. So don't get too engulfed in it. So yeah.
So two things. We're defining the word happiness according to the English dictionary. One. Two, and I've said this before, and I'm guilty of this. The more we have, the less we're happy, right? The people that have the least, again, when they do the survey, I don't know who does the survey, but the people that have the least are the one with the happy. The richer that you are, not everybody. The more you get, the more you want, the least satisfied you are. Expectations, ego. We live in a world where we are bombarded with technology, which is supposed to have been created for convenience, but yet it is causing more grief, right? So the tech people probably would disagree with that, but it is. It is used for good and it is used for bad. So, when Swami is talking about happiness, what dictionary is he using? Telugu, every language has like different definitions. I mean, it is the same, but it is different. So, and also I think it has to do with personality. One person, okay, I don't mean to call her out because I use her as an example. I see Shobha always this like even keeled person. Nothing, she doesn't go up, she doesn't go down. I, on the other hand, my personality, I'm not wired that way. I go up and I go down. And so my path to spirituality is a lot more of a longer road than Shobha because she's already wired that way. So it also has to, I'm using you as an example because that's how I use her, right? So again, so we're all on a different path. So these are all, when we're talking about these things, they are kind of like generic, but then we also have to, when we're talking, one person's experience and their personality and whatever, they have to work differently than someone else. So it's not a one answer. It's good to hear everybody's opinion and version, but we're all built, wired differently. So, beg your pardon? Right. Yeah.
I feel acceptance and contentment helps something that will end up in happiness. Happiness is also, it's nothing concrete. You can say this is called happiness. It's not that. It's just a feeling. Happiness is also a feeling. So I feel if you have contentment and acceptance, that will lead you to something feeling you, we call it happiness. This is my thinking.
Yeah. Also, if we are looking for people to give us happiness or things to give us happiness, we are bound to be disappointed. That is the main thing. We think because this situation, she said that or he did this and I'm very unhappy, that is the person causing this unhappiness. It is not. It is our mind, how we take it. It is our ego. So we have to bring happiness. Happiness is only a fleeting feeling. It is very temporary. It is very temporary. That bliss they are talking about, that is the state of the mind. That is bliss. But happiness comes and goes, ups and downs. So only we have to work on our mind. That's about it.
Sairam, I think we may have to distinguish between happiness and peace. I think what we have to aspire for is peace and not really happiness, because happiness is just the elevated state, and sorrow is the opposite of that. And I think if we really look at it, the peace is what we should be aspiring for.
So that's exactly what Rakhi wrote here. She said, believing in our inner conscious is what our dharma is. And she had written something about peace. I can't see that right now, but she said that happiness she believes is peace, actually. So that is in sync, I agree. But when we are talking about worldly happiness, because this is, the characteristics here are very specific to worldly versus spiritual. Today, we have just discussed on what is worldly happiness. So we will continue our discussion next week with spiritual happiness, and we can take it from there. Excuse me. So, but I think we are at time. So we'll end today's session with Om and Three Shantis and a little life application, which I just said, let us try to be happy, focusing on defining it for yourself. Because even if it is a worldly happiness, you have to define your boundaries for it. It is not going to last forever unless you define what that worldly happiness means to you. So with that, let's end with Om and Three Shantis. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sai Ram, thank you all for participating today.